All right, this is Mitch, and welcome to the Real Estate Investor Podcast. We are here with Marco Romero. He's from San Antonio. He's got a company called Hilco Homes, and he and his wife have been wholesaling for a long time. So we're going to get started with Marco right after this message from our sponsor, given by me, endorsed by me. This is taxfreefuture.com. If you don't have a tax-deferred or tax-free investment vehicle or account where you're growing your retirement or your finances, then you are missing out on a huge advantage. Please check out taxfreefuture.com, the 37 videos there, because you do not have any idea what your financial advisors are not telling you. They are not telling you a lot. All right, we're back with Marco. Thanks for giving me that second there to pay the bills, Marco. But they're a great sponsor. Love them. They do a lot of good stuff. You and I both have talked about this before. We raise private money to do our deals, right? Well, a lot of that money comes from people who have self-directed IRAs, or we teach them how to get their money into a self-directed IRA so they can quit depending on Wall Street and that ticker tape for a living. So
take control of their future.
Take control of your financial future. All right. So how long have you been in the business, Marco?
So I started in real estate about 10 years ago. And I started by joining a local education and mentor group, but I really didn't start investing truly, and I didn't start Hilco Homes until just over 3 years ago. This is our fourth year with my wife, Hillary.
All right, so you're married, and you have two kids?
Yes, we are married. We have two kids. Our daughter, the eldest, is just under 3. And we have a son who's just hit 7 months. So there's a lot going on, and especially early in the morning.
And this is the reason why I think that's important stuff, because people say, well, I'm busy, or I've got too much going on. Well, here's a guy's got a lot going on. He's still out there slaying the dragons and making it work. So I just wanted to point that out. I knew how many kids you had, but you know what I mean? So what was your first, when you dipped your little finger in, or what was your first deal? Do you remember your first deal?
Well, when I first started a long time ago, I started as a real estate agent, and I specifically focused on finding investment deals for investors. And I found that as a great opportunity to kind of just leverage and learn from how they view deals, how they kind of mapped it out and oversaw it. But my first wholesale deal, I do remember, it was off of Hiawatha here in San Antonio. And actually it was at the time I had been telling myself, man, I really would love to wholesale, because the opportunity to control how much you made, it was a little bit higher rather than getting 3% on $50,000 sale or whatever. And it actually came from a friend of mine who he and I had worked together, and he was an investor, and he was like, hey, I found this great deal. What can we do with it? And I was like, hey, let's try and wholesale it. So I didn't know exactly what I was doing, but we got it under contract. I went over there, put a sign in the yard, because I asked the owner if we could do that. And we shot which isn't right, but I shot a video going up and down and around every room trying to showcase it. And this was probably 6+ years ago when I did this first wholesale deal. And eventually brought some investors over there and got a deal done. It went pretty smooth.
Do you know how much you made? Do you remember that?
On that one, I think we made 3 for him, 3 for me. It wasn't very much, but it was a lot to me at the time, and I was really excited to actually prove concept, officially do a deal, and it was really exciting.
That's the point, what you just said. You just proved concept. The most important deals in your life will be the ones that are different than all the other ones, and they work, because it'll open up that door, not only in your mind, but in your heart. You'll start to own the concept in your heart. I mean, reading about a strategy and then actually owning that strategy in your heart is two different things. And you start to own it in your heart when it happens to you and you get a check from that strategy. And
that's absolutely right. Totally.
The most important deal of your life is the first one you do that you get paid on. Doesn't matter how much money it was. That's not the point. The point is that you proved, wow, I can do this, and it does work. Probably a way to ramp up the numbers or do it a little bit better or more efficient, and with more profit in these deals. But the first deal doesn't have to be out of the park home run. As a matter of fact, I think, and tell me what you think about this. I think it's almost a disadvantage for those people who have done their first deal and made 50 grand. I think that's almost like setting these people up for some bad juju.
No, that is true. Actually,
have you ever seen people that made a lot of money on the first deal?
Yeah, and then they think, oh well, this happens every time, or they don't have those strong fundamentals of just like discipline and getting in after it. They just think it plops in their lap and it's all super easy. But that is the rarity and the oddity. Though it would be nice to have that as your first deal. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but it can work against you a little bit.
Totally.
Because those deals aren't the norm. You know what I mean? I mean, let's talk about that. What is your normal wholesale profit?
Right now, just over 8,000.
I'm going to write a number down. Okay. I wrote a number down. What is the average wholesale profit?
Ours at Hilco is just over 8,000.
All right.
That's all right.
I just wrote down 8 to 10,000. Okay.
Yep.
So that's typical. I mean, that's pretty typical. But if you do 20 of those a year, which is not, it's not asking for the moon. I know a lot of people do a lot more than 20. I mean, that's $200,000 a year, give or take. Most of the people I know in San Antonio would be rich at $200,000 a year because San Antonio has a pretty low cost.
Especially in San Antonio.
Yeah.
It's starting to go up, though. Starting to go up. Everyone's moving here.
Yeah, I know. I hope they don't Californicate Texas, though. I mean, geez, you're leaving there for a reason. Don't screw this place up,
Well, it's big enough here that if that happens, or we can shuffle things around. Maybe push them all in the corner in the panhandle or something.
Yeah, or just shoot them. We're from Texas.
Oh, okay. That's also one option.
I'm joking. So you've got a little giveaway for the folks, and we're going to give away. We're going to give the link out here in a little bit. But you've got 10 videos on how to successfully wholesale, and a lot of things people don't think of, the little things. And like you said, it's in the minutia, it's in the discipline, and it's in the small things that you do in the beginning for sure. And because the beginning's important to get right, because if you don't get it right and you don't hit success within a relatively short period of time, you may quit a business that could be worth a fortune for you. That's how it was for me. I almost quit the house business 2,000 transactions ago when I got tied up in some rentals that were killing me, and I was getting hurt pretty bad, and I wanted to run away. Then this mentor guy that I gave the last 10,000 on my bank out of my bank account to showed me how to fix the problem, and not only how to not leave the business, but how to stay in the business for the last 22, 24 years. So be careful how you start, because you want to give yourself a good chance to succeed, because this business can be worth a small fortune. It can always, and there's no problem with people that, not everyone wants to be rich or wealthy or worth multi-millions of dollars. You can make a good living at this business and have a huge life left over too, if you learn how to do it right. It just depends on what's more important to you. Time, money. I kind of took these deals. I'm going to sacrifice all my time and everything to build my wealth and my finances really big, and then I'll pull back at that time and bring more time back into the balance of my life. Be careful if that's your plan, because what happens is when you get to running so fast for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, you don't know how to turn back anymore. So
you forget how.
So I'm still buying 100 houses a year, so 22 years later. All right. So we'll give you the link to that 10 videos on how to successfully wholesale here in a little bit. So where do we start? Where do you start with wholesaling? What was your first lessons in wholesaling that you were doing wrong? What are the things you were doing wrong when you started out?
One of the big mistakes I made early on was not knowing my numbers. I was so focused on, I just want to successfully do a deal because I didn't know how to do a deal. I wanted to just get to the closing table and get a check, that I didn't realize that I was actually getting some really good deals and I was selling them for almost nothing. And I was not helping myself get ahead. So that first deal I mentioned, I made like $3,000, but the first few after that, I was only making $1,000 on each one. And any money is good money, but at the time I really needed to bring in more money. So I had seeds for more marketing and to be able to kind of pull myself out of the financial situation I was in. And by not knowing my numbers, I was just selling the deals at significant discounts. The investors loved it, so they definitely came back. So definitely built a long-term strategy from that perspective. But knowing your numbers, so hey, on this deal I can make $5,000, or on this deal I can make $8,000, or on this deal it might be this, that, and the other. You need to know what your ARV is. You need to know what the rehab is, and be mindful of that. In the early stages, I was not as knowledgeable. That would be definitely one of the big learning lessons. And then I always tell everybody there's two components that of real estate are the two biggest learning lessons for me. Number one is being honest, being forthright and honest with everyone that you deal with. And that includes the sellers and the buyers and anyone else, just letting them know what's going on. Too many people go in, especially from a wholesale perspective, is they try and paint this picture of, this awesome investor. They've never bought anything before, but I'm this big investor with all this money, and we can't close on this day because I'm trying to get my funds together, or this, that, and the other. And they kind of paint this picture of not necessarily truth, and they try and pull a wool over people's eyes, and that can very much backfire. And what I found is when I was honest with people, especially like with sellers, and I just told them the reality of like, hey, I have a buyer for this contract. They weren't able to get the hard money loan. They're going to actually use cash, but we're going to need an extra week or something to close. By just being upfront and honest, that really they were more willing to help me, and getting that week extension wasn't that big of a deal. And actually they were more than willing to do that. So honesty is number one. Number two is also managing expectations. It's the whole adage of like under promise and over delivering. If you say, hey, if you talk to a seller and you're like, I can close this in 7 days, and then you don't close in 7 days, that's not going to go very well. You're going to have troubles getting that extension. But rather, if you say, hey, I can close this in a month, but you're able to get it done in 2 weeks, now you're managing expectations properly, and you're under promising and over delivering. So those are the two big things that I kind of learned over time that I try and tell people over and over.
How do you decide how much you can take out of the middle? Because you're selling this to someone who wants to make money also. Maybe you're selling it to a buy and hold guy, a landlord, or maybe you're buying it to a guy who's going to actually fix the house and flip it in the retail market. How do you decide how much you can take out of the middle? Let's take a $100,000 house. What do you have to buy it for, and what are you taking out of the middle, and how much are you leaving left over with this guy? Let's say, I don't know, let's figure out an example, or do you have an example? Like you got to buy for 50 that's worth 100, or I don't know.
So there's a few different ways that you can look at it depending on the type of investor who would buy the deal. There's investors that are flippers, investors that are buy and hold rental, and there's some investors that do owner finance. So you have to be mindful in that arena. But also where the property is located. Some of them, like on the west side, really run down compared to maybe something on the Stone Oak area. Different areas dictate different deals. So there's a combination of items that kind of overlap that kind of help you determine what you can do. Our easiest rule of thumb that I can use is selling at 75% all in. So the adage over years and years and decades is investors want to be at 70% all in, which is basically once you look at the value of the property and you multiply it by 70%, you want to have your purchase price and your repairs in that number. Because the market has been going up and up and up, we're like in the second longest economic expansion to date. Things have been really positive from an investment real estate perspective, and especially in San Antonio. What I have found is the marketplace here in San Antonio can pay at the very top end 80%, 78% is really pushing it, but 75 is kind of a good middle ground that a lot of investors are buying at right now. So we at Hilco Homes work to put our numbers at 75% or less. And that's how we kind of dictate the middle based on what we negotiate.
See, that explains why I don't buy very many wholesale homes, because I want to be in at 65% or less. So what I did was I just became a wholesaler, but I didn't sell to anyone but me. Or
There you go.
I gave it to
you
me.
kept all of your contracts, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, my theory was at some point, and you're like a really honest wholesaler. There's a lot of, just like any other business, there's a lot of dishonest wholesalers out there, just like there's dishonest doctors and attorneys and everything else. And so they're trying to tell you that it's 75% or 70%, but they're undervaluing the rehab cost and they're overvaluing the property, or pushing that number as hard as they can, and it starts to squeeze. And at one point I just said, if they can find these kind of houses at those kind of prices, I can find them. So I will go out and do that. And my deal was I was going to buy them and sell them with owner financing. But if you do find, if there is a really honest wholesaler out there, then it can work. It can work. You just have to find the right guys. We do buy from a handful of guys in town wholesale now and then. But probably one of the challenges for a wholesaler right now, Marco, is the greater fool theory is really working well. They got people coming from California and places that think that these houses are so cheap that somehow the price doesn't matter, which is not right. But people will pay. I mean, I was down at the auction last month just because I don't normally go to auctions, but there was this property that was misrepresented on its size, and it was a lot bigger than the tax roll said. And I was hoping to go down there and pick up that property. Meanwhile, I'm watching these other properties, and I've had a property on almost every other street, if not every street, in the south side, east side, west side in my 22-year career. And I know these streets really well. And, I had a house on Hiawatha. We used to play a game with my wife when we drive through town. You start calling out the streets, and I'll say yes or no. And it was like, yes, yes, I've had a house on that street. Yes, we've had a house on that street. This lady, we saw this house go up on a street. We had 3 houses on the street, and I couldn't believe the price she paid for the house. It's like, that's $25,000 over what it should have went for if it's in pretty good condition. And I have no idea what condition the house is in, but I'm going to think it must have been in fair condition for her to offer this price. We went over and talked to her, like, why did you offer that price on that? And I said, you must have really wanted that house. Why'd you have you? She says, oh, well, it was in our budget. I said, in your budget? And she said, yeah, my husband, we have money in California, and he told me to come here and I could buy houses under this amount of money. And I said, so did you see the house? And she said, no, but it was under the amount he said I could spend. And I thought, oh my God, I got to start selling houses at the auction. I'm going to foreclose on my own land trust and just bring all my houses down here until this stops, because, so I think what's happening in a lot of the wholesalers is that they could put it up really high just to see if the greater fool walks in. And right now, a lot of people are paying too much for houses. Would you agree?
Oh, that's definitely true, for sure. Since we are wholesalers, we work with a lot of wholesalers, and a lot of wholesalers or people starting out bring us their deals so that we can help bring the buyer. Maybe they don't have the biggest buyers list. So we see a lot of other wholesalers deals, and there's definitely wholesalers that are pushing 82 or 83% or even more. And it's the truth. The problem with that is if things do adjust, there's corrections, there's a downturn in the market, all of those people go away, and your whole buyer clientele list is going to be those disciplined investors such as yourself. And
yeah,
if you have a whole
you're saying the buyers will go away because they'll fail because they're in too high, but also the wholesalers will find it probably much more difficult because you can sell a person a house at an exorbitant price once or twice, but then they're gonna go away from you, right? You can give a person, if you give a person a fair deal consistently, then they're going to come back time and time. They might buy 40 houses from you, right? So there's a balance there. I like I'm always in business for the long haul. And that's why I think the guys that are leaving a little more room for the end user will do better in the long run, because I don't know that people can pay these prices forever. But let's talk about the 10 videos on how to successfully wholesale. What do those 10 videos include?
So we created those videos for people that are wanting to get started. It's not going to have every single detail of make sure to check this on the contract. But quite honestly, when you're first getting started, people trick themselves that they need to know all the intricate details. And like that first Hiawatha deal that we were talking about earlier, I didn't know all the details, but I still just kind of pushed forward and took some action and was able to finally get the deal closed. And that's what you need to do, just to prove concept, and you can fail your way forward. These videos were videos that we created to give the main components of what you need to be mindful of, what you need to be doing when trying to put a wholesale deal together. So what is wholesaling? How to find a motivated seller, how to contract a property, what to do with that contract when you get it, how to find a buyer for your contract, how to draft an assignment contract, and how to clear title if necessary and get the closing. So a lot of the overarching main components to help you be successful, we put it together so it's in an easy format for someone to kind of listen to and learn and take action for their first deal. Because once you do the first deal, then the world opens up. And just like you were saying, Mitch, if you can procure your own properties, and yes, you might be wholesaling today, but 2 years from now, you might be buying that property for your own portfolio. And that's what it's all about.
Well, I think that's an important thing to bring up. I think that, first of all, yes or no, do 99% of the people that get into the real estate business get into it broke?
Oh, yes. Probably 99.3. All right.
99% of us started broke. I'm included in that category. Are you?
Yeah, totally. I was like under broke.
Hey, I read Nothing Down, and Robert Allen suggested that if you had nothing, you could buy a house. I said, man, I'm so broke, I can buy the whole town.
There you go.
I can buy everything, man. I'm so broke. I can buy it. So the second thing is, will you agree? Almost everybody I know that's big in the real estate business, like really big in it, they all started just wholesaling to get some money in their pocket.
Yeah, and you know what?
It's a natural first step, right? It's like you got to learn how to wholesale before you can do anything else, because there's a lot of deal finding, and that includes liquidating.
Yep, and there's a lot of investors who are known as investors. They might buy and hold or even owner finance that also still wholesale from time to time, depending on the deal, or maybe they have too many rehabs going on at one time, or maybe they're about to go out of town for a month or whatever, and rather than have inventory on the books, they'll wholesale it out. So it's a strategy that people use in the early stages, but even as supplemental to their current core business as well.
So I did 97 houses in 2018. I wholesaled 2 houses. I only wholesale houses that I'm really just disgusted with, and like I really didn't want the house, but if they're going to give it away at that price, I'm going to take it and make some advertising money, you know? The other, I think I did like 26 houses we retailed. I could have owner financed all those houses, but I have a team, and my team gets paid upon success, which means they get paid when I get paid. We all get paid when the money hits the table. You know what I mean? And sometimes people on that team need to get a hit. They need to get some money in the bank account. I'm always watching I have 4 acquisition managers, and I'm always talking to them, are you okay this month? Are you good this month? You got enough money in the bank? Yeah. When a couple of them go, I'm getting kind of thin, I'm down to the last $8,000 in my account, no one wants to wait till they get down to zero. I say, okay. Pick a couple of your houses. Let's retail them. Let's get some money in your pockets. I prefer to hold mine and postpone the income way out for 30 years and just let it dribble in each house for a lot of different reasons. But I'm at a different level than they're at. So I have to liquidate houses, which could be in wholesaling and retailing, they fall in the same bucket. The only difference with wholesaling is you probably have to wholesale the house if it's not in a condition to retail, or if you don't have the resources to get it in a condition to retail. So, and so I think that's perfectly normal.
You just mentioned like a really big leadership concept right there. And that's something that I'm trying to improve as I'm building our team and lead our team too, is just being mindful of the team members and where they are, especially from a monetary standpoint, because you're completely right. You know, being at a different level where you have all these houses and all this income coming in, you know, people that are on the acquisition team or whatever might not be quite at that point, and being mindful of that and keeping your finger on the pulse of what's going on with them is going to help keep the ship going and keeping them happy and motivated moving forward. So that's awesome.
Well, I learned this from real life experience. I had, and he's a great guy. He's a great guy. Won't mention names, but I had a mentor in the early days, and I was running out finding deals, and he was partnering with me, and we were creating notes. But he would never sell one of those notes to give me some big influx of cash. Like, we could have sold some of those notes and made $20,000, and I would have gotten 10 and he would have gotten 10 to sell one of the notes, right? But he wouldn't sell any notes. And so we were splitting like $3,000 or $4,000 down payments 20 years ago, and I was getting a couple $1,000 and it wasn't enough to sustain me. And it's like, I was fine. As you might imagine, I was a house finding fool. I would find 150 houses very shortly after this thing happened. I was out finding houses. I found 150 houses very shortly after that one year. And he just wouldn't let me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't, I didn't have any money. And so he says, yeah, well, you're getting half the payment. I said, that's $250 a month. I can't do anything with half the positive cash flow. While it's great, and I understand that over the years it's worth a fortune, it's only $250 a month. I mean, if he would have just sustained with me enough to where I had $5,000 a month coming in, my half of the payments, and sold enough notes to get me there, we probably would still be partners. But he wouldn't. I couldn't breathe, and that's how I learned to watch my guys. I love my guys. I'm really happy with the guys I have. I think they're team players, and I want to be a team player back. And so I'm looking, how's your pipeline look? You got anything? You got things, guys? You guys got things closing? Who's running lean here? Well, I'm running lean. And then, I'll take note of that. And as leads come into me after my 2 years worth of being in business, I mean, I got leads just walk up to me. I frankly don't want to deal with them. So I picked a guy that's a little lean, and I start feeding him that week. You know what I mean? Or, here's like 4 leads. People just called me. Check these out. And, next week it might be another guy. I just take my leads and I feed those guys, the ones that walk into me just because of my connections and my experience. And I think it's a good thing. And I hope these guys are with me forever. One of the things I talk to him about is I try to want to make it to where no one wants to go out on their own. Because if you go out on your own, you're going to have an office like the one we have right now. You're going to have the money like the $14 million I have right now. You're going to have a salesperson and a website that says, I can't do it all. That's why I hired y'all. What makes you think you could do it all? Let's just make a great team where everybody makes a great living. And
that's what we're trying to do too with Hilco, is just provide a lot of resources to where, because it's not easy out there by yourself. You're wearing all these hats. You have to find the properties. You have to negotiate. You have to, be the liaison with title and maybe the lender involved. You have to find the buyers. There might be title issues. You have to talk to heirs. There's all kinds of different stuff that comes up. And so there's a power and a synergy in working with the team and being with like-minded individuals. And that's what we're trying to provide with Hilco is, yeah, wholesaling is great, but wholesaling is truly a job. So, how can we help each person get to the point where they're investing and acquiring the properties? And quite honestly, with Hilco, we're basically having a machine that's always looking for properties. And with Hillary and I, my wife, it's important for us to make it possible and achievable for each of our team members to purchase the properties that we contract so that they can build their own passive income.
So how I've been doing that's interesting, because how we've been doing that is people go to the phone room for, 60 days, and then they get out in the field, and then they're like a wholesaler to us for a year Okay. And then if they're really good and they're sticking, by the time, and it's not really by the years, it's by the number of deals. Like by the time you've done 50 or 60 deals with us, we'll consider partnering with you at that point, and where you go form a corporation and my corporation forms 50% of your corporation, and we'll do owner finance homes and start generating income. You know what I mean? And my office will do all the collections, we'll do all the foreclosures, we'll do everything. We'll just put them over there for, you have to pay the collection side of the business, just like you have to pay for a bulldozer when you go to bulldoze some land. I mean, it's not like, well, that guy says he's making $100 an hour. No, he's not making $100 an hour. He's making $50 an hour, and the bulldozer's making $50 an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we require to keep it in house, because we got to make sure that the integrity of the business is always run the way I want it run, because my level is real high, and it's also my private lender's money probably that's in that house. So by virtue of those two reasons, if you want to partner with me, if you get to that point in the business, where you've done enough deals with us and we're all comfortable with each other, but I still got to keep it in house, because it's my private money lender that's underneath, and that's really what dictates. If you go find a private lender and you can go manage it however you want to. You know what I mean? Because
you got to protect your private lenders.
I got to protect my private lender. And but that's interesting. I've thought about it where you just give a person, like if it's time to give them more and lead them into a cash flow situation, instead of just a buy, sell, get a check, buy, sell, get a check. When it's time for them to start building a residual income, that you just give them like every third house or every other house or whatever. The problem is, in partnerships, there can't be your set of houses and my set of houses, because then there will always be that conflict of interest. Oh, he's cherry picking the greatest ones for him. And I've tried it before, and it always gets down to that. A $100,000 house would fall into my side, or a $100,000 house, talking about profit, $100,000 profit fall into my side on an outstanding deal that you never could have seen coming a million miles away. It just happened. It falls on my side of the court. They think that I manipulated that somehow. If it falls on their side of the court, I have a natural tendency to wonder, if this is how it happened naturally, or if he sandbagged it. You know what I mean?
Well, with us, and this is, we're still a young company, and Hillary and I are trying to navigate this and learn and evolve and tweak and those type of things. The way we currently have it set up is we kind of have like a round robin system, to where every contract that comes in, there's an order of people that can purchase it. And if you've bought one recently, then like if you were the last person to buy, you go to the bottom, which Hillary and I are like towards the bottom right now. So all the people above you had to pass on it. And some people are at different levels. Some are ready to buy. Some, they still need to save up some funds before they can buy or raise capital or whatever. So it just goes through that. So everybody has that opportunity. But if somebody does buy it in our system, they still have to pay like the wholesale fee that would have been paid. So that way everyone still kind of gets paid for the efforts and the marketing dollars and those type of things. But that way, over time, they have the ability to acquire their own properties and those type of things. And it is kind of an interesting thing, because ultimately what we're doing is we're setting them up to build their own passive income, to where they don't have to work anymore, and they eventually will leave Hilco. But, I think and from my current view, I think it's worth the gamble, because if I can set up a system in an environment in which I can help our team members, I can teach them to acquire properties and build their passive income, and they do accomplish that, even if they do leave right now, or at that point, there'll always be that understanding that they know that I was able to help them get to that point. And 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, maybe we partner on an apartment complex or a storage unit or something like that down the road, just because they're a little bit more financially set, and so are we. So that's kind of the game plan in the long term, hopefully.
So, home investors kind of did that with the billboards and the advertising. They had a rotary system, and so if you were in that, you were in that district, or you were in that county, and you were the 5 people in that county, or the 5 people in San Antonio, all the billboards, there was the same number was on the all the billboards, but they had a system that would delve out the phone calls to the 5 offices in a rotary. It was a rotary system, and it just, your call might be bullshit, and then it might not be, but you go around 5 times, and everyone had the same risk. You know what I mean? So I don't know. There's 100 ways to do this business, and there's 100 different strategies, and at least you're sitting down thinking about how it works in the long haul. Because you can't wear all those hats forever.
No.
After 15 years of me wearing all those hats, I was about to fall down, and I was going to walk away from the whole business. And
well, you can't grow that way. If you're looking to grow, you have to shed off some skin, metaphorically. So, you have to be mindful of what you're shedding off so that you can grow and become something else.
The hardest thing about automating or setting up systems to me was I didn't realize what the resistance was until I really got into it and figured out part of the pain that I hadn't calculated was when you really start to set up systems and you decide, all right, I'm going to systematize this business or this part of this business, you've got to stop doing what you were doing. And if you're the guy that was buying the houses and selling the houses, that's all on hold now. So part of the pain I didn't calculate was, the year that I decided to really automate, I didn't buy 100 houses. I bought 30. I lost out on 70 houses. And that's a huge amount of expense that I didn't have to write those checks out of my pocket, but it was money I didn't make. And so that was part of the resistance. It was, I'm not out finding houses at the pace I was. And so I'd always jump back into finding the houses, and my systems always got shorted, the time and the effort for the systems. So I finally gave myself permission, like, I'm going to set up systems this year, and that means I'm not going to make hardly any money or what I'm used to making this year in this business. And I gave myself permission not to hit my numbers, that I wasn't going to hit my numbers, that I had to take a step backwards for a year to be able to go forwards and have a life and not have to be there all the time, if at all. So does that make sense?
Yeah, we're working through that right now. And ours is like shorter time windows than what you just mentioned. So like, for instance, our acquisition team, we would have them, when they contracted the property, they would handle the title side of the process, and they would find the buyers for their contracts. They would handle the entire deal. Well, I outsourced the title side, so now we have 2 people that handle all the title work. They don't do anything with buyers or sellers. They just do title. And just recently, we broke our acquisition team into an acquisition side and a disposition side, a sales side. So the people that work with buyers and then the people that work with sellers. And every time we've made adjustments like that, which are long-term adjustments, there's definitely been a short-term drop-off. And just being prepared for that, being understanding for that, and understand it's part of the process is kind of what we're learning and going through ourselves.
Yeah, and then one of the other lessons I learned was there's people that I just want to do a job. I have a job. You want the job. You have the job. Don't want to teach you the house business. Don't want to teach you about cash flow. Don't want, I'll teach you how to open up a 401k and you can loan your money out to us or whatever. But there's a couple of places like, I just need you to do the job. If you're ever tired of that job, let me know and I'll get someone else to do the job, And so I'm not picking up these people at the RIA or, I'm picking them up from other places,
If you get the right person for that, they thrive in that environment too. A lot of people don't want to be the entrepreneurial type,
there is, there's all kinds of people, and Mike and I are always doing this. Like, I can't believe, the person worked 40 years and did. I go, Mike, you got to have people like that. The world, if those people weren't there, people like us couldn't do what we do. You know what I mean? So we appreciate all the different kinds of people, and we offer an opportunity for certain kinds of people in certain kind of positions for a certain amount of time, which is pretty much up to them. So, all right, you guys, we got 10 videos on how to successfully wholesale. I know we strayed a little bit, but wholesaling, like he said, is a job, and there's probably a lot of wholesalers listening to this right now that are trying to figure out how to systematize. So we went off a little bit on that leg of the conversation. But I want you to go to reinvestorsummit.com / let's say Hilco, HILCO. You see it right there behind Marco, HILCO. So that's reinvestorsummit.com/Hilco, and get your 10 videos on how to successfully wholesale. And, he also offers some courses. You've been wholesaling for a long time, and that's kind of your specialty. You have lead generation for wholesalers, negotiations, and title and contracts. I think the negotiation and title and contracts is something that I don't see as often. We see a lot of lead generating ideas and conversations on this podcast and a lot of podcasts, but you don't see a lot on negotiation, and you see even less on title and contracts. So I think you picked some good things to teach people, because some of this stuff is kind of obscure, although it's really, really important. If you can learn how to solve title issues, you can buy at least 20, 30 houses a year from that problem alone, once your surrounding network understands that you really like to deal with title issues. That's where you go talk to all the title companies and everybody and say, look, if you see a house that has a title issue, and all the realtors especially, you got a house with title issues, I want to know about it.
So we created these courses specifically trying to tackle what I thought were big gaps for a lot of people from my own experience as being a wholesaler. Yeah, lead generation was one, just because that's the starting point, and you know how to generate a lead. But beyond that, I really wanted to delve into negotiation, and I really wanted to delve into title and contracts, because those arenas, like you said, are not talked about enough. And if you can really develop the skill set of being a impactful negotiator, and develop the skill set of knowing how to navigate a contract, but additionally solve title issues, the amount of deals that you're able to do will definitely increase. And not only that, the assignment fees themselves, or the fees that you're making, can definitely increase as well. If you know how to negotiate a lower price point, of course your fee comes up. If you know how to reduce a lien or remove a lien, of course your fee is going to get bigger, because you're more masterful. You have a higher skill set. There's been definitely situations in where other wholesalers couldn't do a certain deal that we were able to do because we knew how to negotiate better, or we knew how to work with the title company better to solve the deal. So we created those to be more helpful.
Here's a case in point. We're buying a house tomorrow. Not a house, really, it's a building. And it had an $80,000 lien on it from the city. I don't know what costs $80,000, but we've already figured out how to beat it. And so we negotiated to purchase of this price, everyone with the $80,000 expense on the table as part of what we're going to have to pay. And then we've already figured it out. We're not going to have to pay the $80,000. So we just cleared $80,000 extra profit because we learned how to solve, because we're experts at dealing in title issues and liens and assessments. So
that's a skill. That's a skill.
Yeah, a skill. And that skill on this one deal is going to pay 80 grand. We negotiated a price, plus the 80,000. This is how much we're going to pay. That's fair. They said, yeah, that's fair. And then we're going to buy the place, and we're going to walk right down, and we're going to eliminate the $80,000. Zero. We're going to pay zero for the $80,000. So that's an $80,000 increase. That's a valuable skill, I'd say. A lot of people don't make $80,000 a year
on one deal. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, all right, my friend. Again, that link to get to the 10 videos on how to successfully wholesale is reinvestorsummit.com/Hilco with one L, HILCO. And go there, get your 10 videos. And I will say this, those 3 little video courses that Marco's offering are very affordable. I think they're $97 a piece. Is that right?
97, and each one has over 50 videos each. So definitely a lot of value.
50 videos about that topic for $97. I don't know how you don't make an extra, learn $100 worth of something off of these 3 things. I think it's a great offer. And if you're just starting out, this is affordable and it's easy. All right, you guys, this is Mitch Stephen. I'm thanking you for stopping by to get you some Marco Romero today. And I'd like to thank Marco for coming out, sharing. His wife was going to be with us, but the babysitter checked out on at the last minute. So we'll do another one where we can get your wife on, okay?
She definitely adds a lot more flavor and color to the conversation. So I think you would very much enjoy it, and your listeners as well.
All right, well, we'll make a point. I'll have Julie set that up, okay? This episode was brought to you by taxfreefuture.com. Please check out the 37 videos. If you're not using a tax-deferred or tax-free investment account, you're missing out on a huge, huge advantage. Taxfreefuture.com, because you have no idea what your financial advisors are not telling you, and we're going to expose it. All right. Thanks, Marco. Thank you so much. Any last words to the new wannabe contemplating investor out there? What would you say to him before we wrap up?
For the people that are on the newer side, I have gone through this journey telling myself, oh, I can't achieve this, I can't do this. And despite my overwhelmingly want to make things happen, because I have mental blocks, I didn't have money, I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the time, or, I have these kids or whatever, just push through, go after that deal, take the action. Most people don't take the action. That's why they're stuck where they are. But the fact that you're listening to this podcast means you're on the right track. So just go after it. You can do it.
All right. Good advice. All right. This is Mitch Stephen with the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. We're out of here. Bye, Marco.
Peace.